What's up? Welcome back to the Lioneye's podcast, guys. We've had a few new skill reveals this week, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And as per usual, I have my two co-hosts with me, PT and Hedgie. What's up, guys?
What's up, everybody? Glad to be back.
Well, let's just keep going with this. Words.
Words. Now you really know how to sell yourself here in the beginning.
I was gonna make a joke, but it was like politically based because we made the joke beforehand, and I was just like, you know what, that's just gonna derail things. So I was just like, nope, that train wrecked in my head before it even started. So let's begin this.
Fair enough. Have you guys been up to anything interesting? Just since the last podcast, we didn't have any podcast the last week.
Mind over matter, and I can confirm it does suck. It's terrible.
I want to see
I've just been.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go you first.
Okay, I just wanted to say I want to see the chest being used again. What is it? The Mind Over Matter chest?
Cloak of Defiance?
Cloak of Defiance, yeah.
Well, I don't see Cloak of Defiance going to be used because of the new position of Mind Over Matter. Mm-hmm. Even if it was 40%, Mind Over Matter is in such a great place for wanting to use Mom. It's just hybrid is better than Mom.
Does Mind Over Matter stack with the Hierophants?
Yes, it does.
So you get 10% extra. Yeah, so you get the 40 there with the Hierophant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's still terrible.
Still terrible. How's the mana with the...
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You need so much mana. I don't have great mana yet, but so if you had like 7,000 life and you're taking 40%, you're going to need just under 3.5 thousand unreserved mana to get the maximum efficiency out of it and regen it. And good luck getting that much mana. Mm-hmm. In which case, getting 3.5 thousand energy shield is not hard at all, and it's 100% efficient. So
I remember getting 3,000 mana was not that hard back in the day. 1.3 when Arctic Armor and...
Yeah, the old EB.
Yeah. I felt like that was typically where I wanted to go with that. Around 3,000. It felt pretty good with the mana region as well. I really missed that mechanic. I thought that was really cool. But, yeah. What about you, Hedgie?
I've just been grinding out the last 3 challenges. Trying to farm Overgrown Ruin, Chaos Bosses, the Warbands. And I'm almost there. I think I'll be done with all the challenges by the end of this week. Mm-hmm. But it's been pretty busy. Thanksgiving's coming around, and I had a lot of family flying in, so been entertaining family. Haven't been streaming as much, but I've been playing a lot of PoE still.
What's the hardest of the challenges, in your opinion?
The end game grinds. I mean, the challenges, they're as hard as you want them to be. Personally, I've taken it upon myself to do them on my own. And that has remained true except for the one on Shaper. I paid for the Shaper kill. Okay. And, as long as I don't die, I totally plan on doing it myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When are you going to try the Shaper?
Next league, I guess.
Yeah. Or in between. You've already tried him, of course, in...
Yeah. I have had FaceTime with him before, like, a lot of information was released. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of fun, but as far as, like, doing it on hardcore, I'm out of time, really. And I have other goals that I need to hit before I die.
You kind of want to... For the Shaper encounter, you really want to have a character really made for that encounter as well.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
EA can do it, but you need shit tons of grand spectrums, and that's quite the investment.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that these are finally starting to get used. I think we started to see some use of them past league or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think...
Yeah, they were used in the fire builds.
Yeah.
I remember some explosive arrow builds just being like, hey, look at me one-shotting things.
Mm-hmm. And after they were announced, there weren't really anyone using it for that league, right? And then I think they caught up. But yeah, that's...
about mid-league to a bit later, they weren't at the start.
All right. Well, guys, let's talk about the new skills. We're going to talk about Scorching Ray, Blade, Flurry, and Blight. And we're all each 3 going to present it. Hedgie, you're going to start out with Scorching Ray here. And I'm going to show the teaser here as you talk about it, and I'll have it looping. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just going to read a couple of the paragraphs because they're well written. When you channel Scorching Ray, you fire a deadly beam in front of you that passes through anyone who blocks its way, meaning it has 100% pierce. Enemies the beam touches catches fire, burning from damage over time. This burning only lasts a short time, but is refreshed while they are in the beam. The burning damage on the enemies grows while they're in the beam. The cast speed of the beam affects how frequently this damage builds up. And this is one of the more interesting things because it's not an ignite, but it lingers a burn. And then it goes on saying, the more intensely the beam burns, the more it strips away fire resistance, making it great for taking on powerful resistant enemies. Now, when it said this, I was like, is that a global fire damage strip? Because like with penetration, you require on hits to take effect with the resistance reduction. So does that mean that this will work with a party member? Like if he's running a flameless, or will he get enhanced fire penetration? What do you think? What do you guys think?
I would imagine, I think you would.
Yeah, I think it would too, right?
Yeah.
PT?
Yeah, I don't see how it wouldn't. It would have to be very oddly phrased because it would have to then grant you pen that only works on that specific skill.
Yeah. So, it does have some interesting party play interactions. It says, the burning only lasts a short time, so the caster will need to pick their timing carefully to maintain the power of the beam. Scorching Ray follows your cursor so you can sweep it over a cluster of enemies to set them all alight. The faster the cast speed of the skill, the greater the rate at which it can turn, which is probably the most interesting thing about this skill is that cast speed now has a mechanical effect of, any skill where, you can swing faster. And in my opinion, this seems like it's going to be kind of like a fire whip. Like, I don't know how much you're going to want to push it, but I'm hoping it scales like really, really well with cast speed. So much so that we will see the use of the Profane wand, which is a Mariketh wand that nobody really uses. It's got the 12% cast speed implicit. The one below that, the tier 2 one, is the Heathen wand. That's 8%. And I would like to see this bring back some of the jewel itemization. You remember back in the day when we had life-based SRS, that was like super meta. And whenever you landed like a triple cast speed jewel, you were just like, oh my God, this is going to sell for multiple exalts. But ever since they, gone back and remodified how skills stack, how much cast speed is actually required, those jewels aren't really sought out for, and they're not going to pay a lot. So I'm hoping this brings that itemization back, where cast speed is just king.
Well, in general, triple cast speed or triple attack speeds outscale triple damage rolls unless it's a double dipping source.
Right. But, just some skills benefit way more with cast speed than others. Yeah. And I definitely want to see that happen here.
So with cast speed, it's the turn rate that's affected.
And the ability to push those penetration numbers.
Yeah. So it is indirectly also a damage increase.
Yeah,
of course.
Because you're going to apply ignites faster as well.
Yeah.
Or not ignites, burn stacks.
Yeah.
The question then is, like the turn rate, at some point you will get to a point where it's going to be, you don't need it to be faster. And if we're talking about penetration, then we don't know if there's a cap to it, right?
Well, it doesn't say we shouldn't use the word penetration because it's the lowering of resist. Penetration requires the on hit. So it's like a resistance reduction.
Yeah. We don't know if there is a cap on that. So if there is a cap, then obviously you want to have the amount of cast speed that will allow you to reach that cap fairly fast, right? But not more than that.
If there isn't a cap, I'm going Quad Totems Hierophant and bringing mobs to negative a billion resists.
That was the thing. Cool. That was the thing. Like, this is the only skill that they released that they didn't specify when you actually get this thing. Like, what level does it start at? And I saw this. Maybe this is an opportunity to give some racers that don't have very good starting skills, maybe like Marauder. But then when does Marauder get a blue gem? And I think this is probably going to be a blue gem, not a red one. What do you guys think? I mean, Searing Bond is red, but it's off a totem, and totems are red.
Yeah.
And this is a spell that's kind of like a controllable Searing Bond. So I don't know. I mean, if it's not early on, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Well, the one thing that was interesting about the skill, and it was just before you stopped, just after you stopped reading, was that modifiers to spell damage also apply to Scorch Ray's damage.
Right.
That seems to imply that we are going to have spell damage scaling a stackable burn, which means that Righteous Fire would be a more multiplier to the stackable burn, and Low Life would be a more multiplier to the stackable burn.
Do we know if it's a stackable burn? Like, technically. Is it burns that are being stacked upon each other?
Yes. Yeah.
Enemies in the beam catch fire, burning enemies over time. This burn only lasts a short time, but it refreshes. Oh, it refreshes.
So it doesn't necessarily stack, right? I don't think it stacks.
Well, the damage enhancement stacks.
Yeah, the damage enhancement, but not the actual burn.
Yeah, not the spell
resistance.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe you can do that with. Is it Ember Wake or is it Taming?
But it's not an ignite.
No,
so
it's not an ignite.
It's not ignite. But it kind of. At the same time, it has 100% chance to burn, right?
Right. So I guess there's an opportunity to use Flame Surge.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I mean, let's talk about some of the drawbacks with this skill. Like, it's mechanical play. You cannot leech with this. So you need to be one tanky motherfucker. Like, yeah, you're going to have to pick and choose when you're actually channeling. But this kind of screams, oh, you're going to need this on Decoy Totem or with Decoy Totem if you plan on self-casting. Or you might need it on just a spell totem so that you can focus on other things. And I think it also opens the opportunity to use like Elemental Equilibrium, as a self-casting build. So maybe you want to have Scorching Ray totems and then use Ball Lightning with Curse on hit. And achieve some good damage that way. But it's hard for me to picture you being safe in like a boss fight while you're trying to channel and you're taking a lot of damage, because channel skills have that natural inherent handicap where they have to stand still to do damage. It's just not an immediate.
Well, most
payload.
skills you have a cast animation.
Right, but this extends that.
I see a lot of the problems being like Glacial Cascade. Glacial Cascade's relatively power skill if you want to look at its raw damage, but it's hindered by the lack of damage distribution. It only goes so wide left and right. And so the Scorching Ray just has terrible damage distribution for mapping, at least. I don't see it being a fantastic mapper.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get excited with the damage potential, but with sketchy map mods, with hasted mobs, I can't see you surviving it, especially if you wanted to go the RF route, go Righteous Fire, get the more multiplier for your spell damage, have insane sick burns. I think you just die over and over again.
I see this being like Righteous Fire Uberlab.
Yeah, that has some potential, but it could be a cool leveling skill. And, it's something different than Firestorm and Flame Totem. And maybe this will just like help you deal with bosses early on. And I don't know, from levels 28 to Merciless. Definitely could fill in that role to give us some more variety.
There's no way to make it crit, right? It doesn't have a single on-hit mechanic, right?
Yeah, there's no on-hits.
Okay.
So
I wonder if that's just not described, because it seems that it just applies that debuff. Are we sure that it doesn't hit so that it wouldn't apply Elemental Equilibrium?
I mean, nowhere in the wording does it say that it applies or inflicts anything with like a hit.
Yeah. At the same time, it doesn't say the other way around, right? But
yeah. So there's probably the least amount of information from this Scorching Ray. But one cool, unique that might come back to life with this thing is Searing Touch. Searing Touch has +2 to fire gems, spell damage, burning damage, and it's very rare that you can use all those properties, and it has cast speed. But it's on a Lathy, so it's a bit higher level. But I can definitely see, if this has very, very good damage potential, that people might use the Searing Touch to, dish the damage.
Yeah, it would be nice to see some use for Searing Touch again. Or
Yeah,
at least a bit
definitely.
more.
And Chieftain has that Ramako Sunlight, which gives you 0.5 percent mana or life regen per endurance charge, cannot be ignited, and then when your totems kill a burning enemy, 20% chance to gain an endurance charge.
Yeah.
So that could give you some, tankiness or some quality of life things, but you really need the taunt, and you can't taunt when it doesn't have an on hit. So that's really what I wanted, but you can't get that. Well, as far as we know, you can't get that.
Decoy totem.
Yeah, I mean, decoy totem is the obvious one.
It is kind of one of those skills you just have a hard time seeing it being super good with the current meta.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not.
If I had the width of if I had the width of the Shaper laser beam and scaled with area of effect or something, there could be something.
Yeah.
But it has a pretty small width. It's not a projectile. It doesn't have the area of effect tag, so it does kind of leave it as a boss killer to me.
Yeah. I don't really see it. Like, I really don't see that much use of it for general mapping either.
I like that they have the burn application and not seeming to be an initial hit or dependent on the initial hit. That way they are taking away your ability to double dip.
Yeah. I don't know how much I see this as a boss killer, just because the lack of leech. And that's like so pivotal in surviving so many different boss mechanics. So the lack of leech is kind of hindrance, but as far as like killing trash and whipping it around, I think it'd be kind of fun. Or watching it, your window wiper spell totems go at it. I think that could be kind of cool. But if you were to do this in a high-end map, I think you would have to do it on a totem or on totems.
Problem with totems would just be the aiming when you're using totems.
Yeah, you don't have control. So that's going to be interesting.
It's going to look cool, but yeah. We'll see. Maybe like there's a lot of information we don't have available about the skill yet. Yeah. So it might turn to be a solid skill.
And then there's also the Helm Enchants. There's usually one high quality of life Helm Enchant with Itzy was bringing up. And, if they could have fun and one of the Helm Enchants, you could make it a full line and shoot it out your ass. So.
That'd be interesting.
Front and back.
That'd be interesting.
Exactly. Front and back.
I feel you should be responsible for helmet enchants, I think. What was it?
Definitely.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I definitely think as far as another setup you probably want to run is a dual blasphemy, one with temp chains. That would offer you some defense and, some ability to stall and channel, and then maybe Ellie weak as another, or Vol or pot flammability, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, just as a support, we talked about earlier about the chipping of the resists. If it chips relatively quickly, we could just use this on a spell totem as a support the same way Chaos builds use Wither, and your Flame Blast build can do that much more damage because that's
that's what I was gonna say. Make Flame Blast even better.
True.
Just get a whole bunch of supports chipping down Shaper's health and just one shot him through all the phases.
So you were thinking Chieftain with this, had you?
Yeah, I think Chieftain is probably one of the easy ones to call out. Hierophant, I guess, could be another, just because it's so totem heavy and it's got a lot of tools there. Plus, you can get, Ink AoE for Orb of Storms if you put it in your gloves, and you get additional pen if you want to use Flame Totem or something, or Flame Surge to cast alongside it. But
would this work with the elementalists, the one that makes you shock, freeze, and
you would need a hit. No,
you would need a hit, right?
Yeah. Still need a hit. Yeah. One thing you could probably do, since spell totems are so expensive, you could run a Katavas, and I'm pretty sure that this will exceed over 100 mana per cast of totem, and you could put Arc, Cull, Innervate, and Crit Chance. That way you could proc your EE and automatically, it's like kind of like automated. Every time you cast a totem, or almost every time, well, 30% of the time, you're going to get that Arc that's going to Cull, potentially give you Onslaught and, Shock. So that might be interesting, using Kitava's dual totem.
Wasn't spell totem cost reduced not too long ago?
Yeah, it was.
Do you still find it's that expensive?
Yeah, it's still expensive.
Okay.
It's especially on a 6-link. Yeah.
I haven't played with it in a while. I just remembered it being much easier to sustain.
Yeah,
than it used to. All right. Want to talk a bit about Blade Flurry?
I think we can.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me just put this on here. If there's only one target, it will repeatedly attack that target. And in GGG's own wording, it should make for a great boss killer. Now the video's still on, but there should be no sound now. The skill has 6 channeling stages, and it deals 20% more damage for each stage it reaches. When releasing this skill, additional attacks are performed as the figures you send out gets returned to you. And it is possible to change the direction of the channeling. The way it also works, or one of the powerful things about this, is that the skill attacks 50% faster than your character's attack speed, meaning that scaling attack speed and having a fast weapon allows you to reach stage 6 much faster, and that of course means you will deal more damage. And the skill works with claws, daggers, and I think one-handed swords, and you can start using it at level 28. And the interesting thing is, despite it absolutely looking like a casting skill, it is a melee attack skill, this. So the way you probably would build around something like this is actually how you would build like a crit dagger reeve, or crit dagger, or crit sword, things like that. What do you guys think about this?
Well, what I wanted to say was that the skill opens the door for new claw skills, which is what they desperately needed. That's something that doesn't need melee weapon range, or like name locking. As one of the downfalls of claws is that it's so short and stubby. You have to get up close and personal to dish payloads. So one-handed thrusting swords with good damage can now scale with a decent skill other than just spectral throw. So I thought that was interesting about the skill. It promotes very fast, high DPS, and we've been in a meta where we hit hard and then we use tons and tons and tons of cast and attack speed to achieve like ailments and all kinds of fun stuff, bleeds, poisons, everything. Mm-hmm. So I can definitely see you using this in a non-crit way. Mm-hmm. I think there's potential to bring back some older weapons that haven't really shined in this meta, and to use the actual damage on the weapon, not to COC with it. So I think that's kind of cool. The only thing is, it's the whole theme of it. It looks like a lightning tendril with Herald of Ash mixed with some EK action in there. Mm-hmm. It's a little confusing. I don't know if it would feel like a melee character, but if this is how it is, I mean, I guess I'm fine with a new skill for claws and one-handed swords, because they definitely need something. Mm-hmm. They've only had Reeve, Spectral Throw, and Frost Blades for so long. I guess you could shield charge with stuff, but I would like actually using the weapon in a thematic way. I think is important.
I was wondering on how much of a focus they had towards the attack speed. They commented about wanting a higher value so that you hit the maximum stages quicker, and then that completing. I would be surprised if it does become that meaningful. Like, is it going to really matter wanting to use the 1.5 over the, let's say, a higher Fizz DPS 1.3 base within the attack speed roll? Like, that's a pretty small margin, especially when you put in, like, it's a channel and you have human error.
I mean, I think it will because it's going to give you the flexibility of getting to the 6 charge faster, like those snap clicks. In my opinion, it'll probably play like the old Flame Blaster, where you just like get shit tons of cast speed, charge up to 10, discharge it, and it'll be like that stutter step. And that's kind of what they described in their description. Um,
For
but
me, it
this is the
kind of
first
reminds
time.
me of the old Incinerate, where you also wanted to get to max stages as fast as possible. But
Yeah, but Incinerate is something you could charge
mhm,
preemptively, right?
of course,
Yeah. And unlike the other channel skills, this one actually has the potential to leech. So I do see this as a possibility, in an end game build being pretty decent. I
hmm
kind of like the Omni slash type effect. It kind of solves the problem of being restricted to one 6 link. You're not having like an AOE and a single target problem, and you can still conk effect it too. On top of that, like its current form,
yeah,
the explosions are AOE damage that can
true.
AOE overlap. So when you are fighting a boss, you can conk effect that AOE and achieve even greater single target DPS. So it's very rare for us to see something so well rounded in AOE and single target, and I
hmm
think that's what they were trying to achieve. However, I still don't feel like this is a melee skill, even though it uses melee weapons. But
It has
it's
nothing to do
interesting.
with melee. That let's just be
Well, it
frank.
uses the melee weapon, yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
the
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, the itemization direction, trying to get underused skills, underused weapon types, a bit more face time. I also think that this brings a bigger chance for the resurgence of life gain on hit being valuable. The frequency of hits that you're going to achieve, the AOE
Mm.
overlap, and the fact that you're probably going to use really fast foils or claws and daggers, that also screams like life gain on hit. It also means that you're going to have a harder time applying status ailments because it's going to be a ton of itty bitty hits. But once you get to that 6 charge, I think the discharge is going to be enough to apply the status ailment. So after like
Yeah.
the first hit, you should be okay.
But
That being said, I haven't tested it, so.
I have a little bit of a concern in terms of how you would balance a skill like this, because I'm thinking of the one-handed meta currently versus, the two-handed melee meta that's used. And if this is going to do enough damage, like the whole non-crit versus crit balance, because non-crit one-handed melee is suffering, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Um,
I one-handed crit dagger is pretty solid, I think.
Yeah, but he's saying
yeah,
non-crit.
yeah,
Oh, okay,
non-crit.
sorry. Yeah.
So is this just going to be forced to then crit is your only option with this thing?
I still think you would try to go crit, but I don't think it would be horrible if you went non-crit. I mean, just there's so many benefits of going crit, and mainly it's with the ailments and the awesome reactions you get with heralds. So
It's going to be amazing with Slayer.
yeah, I could see you using it as a slayer.
But
Well,
Slayer
the smaller
scales,
hits get the cull range, you get the increased area of effect from the Slayer, and
you
this
just
on
don't
kill
benefit from the
increased area of effect.
two-handed in no way.
Yeah, you'd
Well,
have
to
to
be
give up
fair,
stuff.
there's only, if you check the Slayer, only the travel nodes have two-handed effects, and only half of those travel nodes are specific to two-handed. They're attack speed, usually, and then like two-handed damage.
Yeah, yeah. You're
So-
still wasting it though. That's just my point. But
Well-
sure, you can use it.
Fucking, you're wasting a tiny bit. Like, Slayer's barely a two-handed ascendancy.
I can see this being a problem if you can't you can't achieve fortify. It's nice that the hits are in smaller doses, so getting huge amounts of reflection damage or spiky reflection damage is probably unlikely. You should be able to stop before anything happens. But yeah, it's
think-
kind of cool. I hope life gain on hit is really good with this. It's a valued stat, and some awesome foils will go up for sale and sell for quite a bit. That's what I'm hoping.
I think I would honestly go the good old assassin crit poison and just scale attack speed, applying multiple poisons. I think that's gonna be super super powerful. Or you could potentially do something a little more edgy, go Templar Inquisitor, and use something like Hayan's Fury, per chance, and then just scale elemental damage very effectively. Or you could try something like Raider and just go full frenzy mode to get that attack speed.
But then you're a raider.
You're a Raider, yeah.
Yeah. If it was leaning towards non-crit, it'd probably be Raider just because of the frenzy scaling. And I don't see it being a...
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't see it being like the superior option in the end game. You know, obviously I think crit will definitely shine better with the skill.
But I must say, I see so many hateful comments towards this skill, and a lot of people whining about it. And I must say, I'm looking forward to this. I think it looks like a lot of fun. I can understand the criticism, whereas, oh, this is your way to solve melee by making it not melee and a spell. But from just the skill by itself, it looks fun to me. It's something I'm very, very interested in trying. It looks much more fun to me than Scorching Ray, for instance, does. And I think the scaling looks more interesting as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this was definitely on the liberal side with the design.
Yeah.
As far as what you're able to do, how it feels, and what it looks like. It's nice to have some interesting things, and I think the notable things is they've tossed in new mechanics which haven't been seen before, where it prioritizes nearby targets and targets that haven't been hit. So now that technology's in, maybe they can come up with some even weirder skills, down the road. And that tech is there.
I had the weird thing when I saw it, and I could never get past the thought of, doesn't this look like what Val Flicker should have been?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, with a bit different animation, right?
Yeah, give it like a flickerish animation, then make it so that you can overstack your Val Flicker, and for every Val Soul you consume when you collect Val Flicker, you get an extra attack. It just...
Yeah. When I first heard the skill, I thought of the Chimera immediately. You know how he puts that orange or that red circle on the ground, and he charges up and winds up, and he does like a little mini Omni Slash, depending upon how long he charged? Are you familiar with that skill or that attack? Yeah. So I thought that this was going to be that. Like you charge it up and it's like, a bunch of slashes, but it ended up being completely different.
Yeah.
Seems like there's going to be even, way more calculations that the server is going to have to do with this skill, especially if people are willing to push, the attack speed and things like that. So I'm surprised that they didn't go for the slower route, but I think, with the whole underused one-handed weapons, and it's kind of needed that they need something.
It is a little weird that they talk about that attack speed is getting out of hand, and then
and then they promote
a skill
attack speed
purely
skill.
for that.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was strange.
At the same, well, I guess you have to stand still to do it. But yeah. What do you guys? What do you think? Like in terms of pure fun, if we look aside from what you don't like about the design, what do you think of the skill? Is this something you'll be trying out?
Oh, I'll definitely try it out. I mean, I'm all out. I'm all for new skills and things like that. But would this be my first choice, second or third or fourth? Probably not, because it doesn't feel like melee. But it looks interesting at the very least. And what I really like is that they're looking at single target and AoE and potentially having two separate mechanics and incorporating into one skill.
Yeah,
I think that's key, where they're like, okay, so your stacks aren't going to get wasted. Because look at Frostblades. Frostblades has that initial hit, then it divides into projectiles, and those projectiles get wasted on single target monsters. So they're constantly having to re-push the initial hit, and it's just like, well, why can't we make something interesting with the extra projectiles that'll affect single target? And I think they achieved that with this skill.
Yeah.
But again, it's hard for me to call it melee because it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I guess the intention with calling it melee is simply to allow us to scale it differently.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they ever try to push it out as a melee skill. I don't think they ever did.
No, it doesn't say melee.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't tag melee.
Probably it's probably not fair to compare it to a melee skill, right?
But if it doesn't have a melee tag and you can't use melee physical, you're going to be really forced to go crit on that thing. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think crit is going to be what you want to do as well.
Well, crit might be the only way you can get the survivability you need, because if you're stuck channeling and you're not freezing the mobs through crits, you're just going to get stomped. That's...
There was some. How do you guys think it's gonna do against a single target?
Terrible.
I think it'll be okay if you have Vinctors. I think you'll be able to live.
If you have, sure, I'll agree with that. If you have Vinctors, you're probably fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you will have 50% increased attack speed, right? And you will have very rapid hits if you have decent leech. If you apply poison, it is a physical skill. It could be all right. There is
It's gonna be awkward as shit, though. Like, it's gonna be really awkward.
Having to stand still will be awkward. Just having
like
to
stand still, but then doesn't say if it auto disables when you're at max stack. So if it auto disables and automatically casts when you're at max stacks, and you just finish in kind of stutter step. But if you have to then unleash it yourself, you're always going to hold it on too long and fuck up your DPS.
Yeah. I think they oversold it a bit on the boss killing thing, though, saying that by mentioning that if there's only one target, then it will be super good against bosses. Or that's not the wording, but they said it'd be strong against bosses then because all of the attacks would hit the bosses. But
True.
The thing is, what kind of other skill doesn't do that if there's only one target?
I think ultimately it's going to be like, is it going to have the Ancestral War Chief DPS treatment, like this ungodly number for no apparent reason, in which case, yeah, it's going to do really good single target. And if they give it a number along the lines of Lacerate or Reeve, it's going to be fine.
You probably even want to add Ancestral War Chief to your setup here for extra damage.
Oh, no, you want apparently attack speed. You're going to use Ancestral Protector for the more attack speed roll because...
Yeah. You want to click and go.
I don't think in that particular case. But yeah. All right.
I think it has, only has potential to survive certain devastating things if you really push the leech. And I'm honestly thinking Vinctors. That's all I can think about right now. Mm-hmm. It's I think it'll be able to dish damage. I don't doubt that. I just think that it's going to have some problems surviving while it's trying to channel.
At the same time, from the skills that we have right now, it seems to be the strongest of the, at least if you're talking about leech and standing still and having to survive, it seems to have the most potential of all three right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Effectively, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I think this has the most potential to be incorporated in our next meta.
Yeah, I think so too.
But again, these are very preliminary observations based off of teasers.
Yeah. We
don't have the numbers, so we haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. Just please take that into note when you're listening to this.
Yes. Get to see how wrong we are.
Yeah. We're just making fun, projections based off of the information given.
And there is, of course, also the fact that the thing that it scales with weapons, it doesn't have the same ceiling as the other skills have. So with really, really good gear, like any other attack skill, right? Yeah, exactly. Then it might be good. Oh, one thing that's super cool that I'm gonna try. It's the first thing I'm gonna do with this here. I'm gonna try to use it with Cosper's Malice. I was talking about that on my stream the other day. There was a CMK came into my stream and told me, "Hey, you can use Cosper's with this," and you can do that. You can proc Cosper's with that, and I think that's gonna be super edgy. Potentially pretty cool. We'll see.
The only thing is, like, when you have things like Cyclone, you're already moving, right? And it's got that inherent where you have to stop and cast. So I can see it being maybe advantageous on a boss fight versus a Cyclone, maybe. Mm-hmm. But when you're generally clearing the map, moving into the next position is definitely, very, very strong as far as clear speed.
Mm-hmm. So for sure. PT, do you want to go over?
Yeah, we can go into Blight from now on. Blight? Just make sure you have the video muted so that everything doesn't explode.
It might. I'm putting it on now, guys. If your eardrums are dying, let's see.
So then, Blight, we don't know if we're going to get this one teased for this week, but it's a channeling damage over time skill. You play with actual chaos damage at the start. It's going to be a level 1 skill, so I'm assuming available by like the Shadow, the Scion, and the Witch rate from killing Hillock. If you can manage that. I know Hillock can kill some people. If enemies are affected... So the interesting thing is it's going to have a cone that looks like a very similar range to lightning tendrils. If they have no blight stacks on them whatsoever, they will get a very large hinder effect, which is an 80% movement speed slow. This doesn't stack with other hinder effects. Now, if they do have a blight stack, you don't reapply this extremely powerful hinder, and it has a cap of 20. Now, when you look at what it's going to compare to, this is very nicely something that's going to get you to your Essence Drain build if you want to. Or one of the things is Essence Drain builds usually want to poison or the Delirium Essence to help the single target. We don't know if we're going to have the Delirium Essence moving into the next league, and this could fill in the position of single target for Essence Drain later, even if it's going to make you particularly link heavy.
Yeah, that's going to make you very link heavy.
Yeah,
Whether Essence Drain, Contagion.
Wither.
Yeah.
I mean, Essence Drain, a single target is solved once you have poison.
Mm-hmm.
So to justify a whole nother link setup to add to that, I mean, I can see it being used until you are able to achieve poison. Until you have your Consuming Dark or until you have your Cost Breeze chest. Then this might have some flavor to, pushing down bosses, because you have that diminishing returns of, just putting up the bolt and only getting the same dot.
At the same point in time, when you want to look at like a fight like Shaper, for example, we highlighted Uberdan's. Even with an extremely geared character, about as geared as it can get, even with Delirium or Poison, he didn't have the damage for the ads.
Mm-hmm.
This skill, Essence Drain is a very powerful skill, a very, very powerful skill. And this skill, to be trying to compete with Essence Drain in any way, shape, or form, beyond just leveling until you get poison, as you're saying, is going to have a ridiculous amount of single target damage.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work with Conk Effect. Well, actually, I don't know. There's some weird things. It could potentially. It could not.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questionable scalings available to this.
Doesn't it say that it works with increased area of effect?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the damage does. It could be one of those weird ones like Ball Lightning where it does projectile. Like often when we have poison damage and it's attached to an area of effect, it can scale with the damage type. But then again, they've had situations where something doesn't scale for no other reason than it doesn't.
But I still think it's going to veer on the side of it is an AoE spell, because it is like a blanket, and there's no projectile or other entity. One of the things that I was thinking about is, the potential of using Conk Effect, and the fact that this is this gem is attained at very early levels if you want it to. So more variety for leveling, I'm all for that. I do see some inherent weaknesses, because the hinder is nice against melee mobs. I'll give you that, but what about the ranged monsters or the ranged casters? Those things are gonna shit on you just as fast. So you have to consider. I mean, it's nice. It's really nice for those melee monsters. I think it'll fit nicely into a new leveling meta. As far as what I probably want to use this in the end game, I can't really see myself using it, after achieving the poison with Essence Drain.
Blight, Contagion, Fire Trap looks like a nice, solid leveling pass.
Blight, I guess.
Another thing I was thinking about is like the items or the ascendancies that I would choose, and I honestly could only figure two, or it came down to two ascendancies. One was the Occultist for the obvious reasons, and then Trickster, because I felt like this is another skill that doesn't leech. It doesn't leech, and if you're using it as your main damage dealer, you are going to have some serious drawbacks. So you have to have things that restore or refresh at a very generous rate, i.e. Trickster with Energy Shield Recharge, having Evasion to avoid hits altogether, and then you have the Occultist, with other Energy Shield benefits. I definitely see that being something that's almost mandatory, and I'd probably go with Heretic's Veil just to go temp and feeble, because it does have that interaction with temp chains where you can have longer overlapping stacks, so that'll improve your damage.
One of the things that's going to be the huge question is going to be how much are you going to have to invest into cast speed or duration to hit that 20 stack point? Is this going to be like Blade Vortex when it was 50 stacks? Is this going to be like SRS, old school SRS, or is this more the current form?
Yeah, I'm kind of wishing that you're not able to achieve 20 stacks with like even great gear.
Your goal with this build, or with this skill, since the first Blight does apply the very, very powerful defensive hinder, like an extremely powerful, as long as most enemies auto attack, that's powerful. If you can get enough cast speed that you get enough stacks that kills enemies before that hinder diminishes, which will get extended in duration, as you said, by using temp chains with a Heretic's Veil, which I'm certain is going to be your objective.
Yeah,
that seems to be the objective you would want to with your Blight skill.
Do we know, like the others, do we know if there's for certain not an on-hit mechanic on this one here?
No on hit.
It just says it applies the
degen.
If there is an on-hit mechanic, I could see it as a pretty cool curse on hit setup. Applying, like having double benefits of slowing down, add this to temp chains or something like that, you would have a very, very solid setup.
So
here.
other than Heretic's Veil, did you guys come up with any other uniques that you'd like to use with it? I mean, I have the obvious ones, Chayula for the stun while you're using for your CI, and then Beast Furshaw seems really good with this. Yeah. You get the spell damage, the radius, and then the 30 to 40% energy shield recharge. In fact, when I was
Council will be a fairly obvious choice. That's the one that the chaos damage mace plus duration mace from the Council.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that they're scaling two different stats that used to be scaled before, but hasn't really been in this meta. You're getting spell damage and in duration. But when I was mapping out, trying to get both sets of duration nodes, it just wasn't efficient. So I just stuck with the duration.
It's gonna suck. That's kind of how when I was running through it, is if you do need both duration wheels to make it competent, it's just going to feel very weak.
Yeah. My biggest concern is that this is going to be a supplementary skill. I don't know that's how it's going to be. I don't want another supplementary skill to Essence Drain.
What do you mean by a supplement?
Like a support.
Yeah, a support skill, basically.
I kind of wish that Contagion would have spread the stacks of this skill.
Yeah, that could have worked pretty cool.
Oh, that could be interesting.
Could actually, it could be a different type of Essence Drain then.
Yeah.
That would
not a projectile.
Yeah. Just as an asterisk, it doesn't. Yeah. That would have been cool. It does not.
Yeah, that would actually have been pretty cool.
As long as we find some meaningful way to use it, even if it's not end game, like if it's just refreshing as a leveling skill, I honestly won't mind too much. But I don't know. I don't see myself doing T14 red, yellow maps or whatever and being successful. I'd probably just rather go to the cookie cutter Essence Drain Contagion with poison.
It also doesn't seem to have like this great amount of area of effect. Now, when we look at the video, they do hide some information. We don't know how much area of effect they have, but it does look really, really piss area of effect, and that's gonna fuck you over.
Yeah, I mean, we don't see a lot of things in the video, and we don't know what level the zone is, but I think there's potential as a good leveling skill that's chaos related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just such a simple skill. It applies a debuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You can scale the debuff one way, and it's you can't manipulate it. It's like, I have cast speed.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm really trying to come up with something interesting to say about the skill.
Well, the interesting thing is how the math works out. You know, you have the duration and then you have the cast speed, the application to get as many overlapping areas as possible, which other skills don't really do. But we've had that other one.
Vortex does it. SRS does it.
But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
sure, the
Vortex
skill by itself is perhaps interesting. Maybe I should have phrased it differently. I'm trying to come up with some cool ways to utilize it then. To like some cool builds with this, and it seems like a typical caster to me.
Yeah,
and that's the thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine.
Yeah,
I
don't think there's anything wrong with
with
that. I mean, if we're looking for something specifically for endgame, I completely agree with you. There, like, we can't come up with some janky.
Works with Dying Sun.
Oh yeah. Whoa. Yeah, it happens to work with Dying Sun. Who would have thought? Praise the sun.
Praise the sun, yeah.
But yeah, I want to use this while leveling, and I want to see what it feels like. Maybe it's the new leveling meta, and I'll be happy to use something else other than Firestorm and Flame Totem and Fire Trap.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's definitely nice. I think having a whole bunch, or we only hit the one, but getting skills below the level 12 range or even the level 28 range means we have the opportunity to just play something different. And even if at the absolute minimum it is just for a short period of time, me not playing Magma Orb or Freeze Pulse, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And while you can use Essence Drain in the beginning if you want to use that skill later, this is probably going to be nicer early on.
Yeah, until you get to that rule.
Yeah, and you can scale some chaos damage that way. Maybe make that effective.
I wish I knew enough about the racing meta to see whether this could fit in and if it would be something that would fix some problems. But I don't know. Generally speaking, Witch and Shadow seem to be doing all right.
Yeah, I think so as well. Which of the skills are you guys mostly interested in here? I think you said Blade Flurry as well, didn't you, Hedgie?
Yeah, but I think Blade Flurry has the most potential as far as like end-game application.
Yeah. What about yourself,
I have the most interest in Scorch Ray because there's a lot of advantage for me to have a good Uberlap killing build. And if that fits a niche that I can do Righteous Fire quite simply, it has a function for me.
Okay.
The other ones are not really filling a need of mine.
I would be super careful standing still and channeling in Uberlap, but and having no leech, but
face tank it.
Face tank it. Okay. Just get a larger health pool, or yes, I guess.
I think I'm actually most excited. Like, I'm most optimistic with the Blight skill, but I'm actually most excited to try the Scorching Ray only because I want to see how fast I can whip it around. You know, like when I get enough cast speed, how fast can I just flick? You know, my mouse.
That's the only thing that excites Hedgie. How fast he can whip it around.
That's the only thing I hear as well.
It's all about speed.
It really isn't. It really isn't. All right. How about you? Unless you guys have something you want to add to this. One thing. I still think I said this before. I think it's a shame that they released them now. I think they should have saved it until next league. I feel there's some anti-hype going on almost with it right now. I almost feel like it sucks having the skills thrown into the game and then everybody just have tons and tons of gear they can just put on, test it out, boom, and then it doesn't feel good. We don't get to see people being creative from the beginning, but yeah.
To be fair, you know, though the patch is supposed to come out the upcoming week, these skills have failed their deadlines miraculously in the past. A betting man would not expect this week.
Yeah, I don't think anybody predicted it this week.
But didn't they lost a lot of money now that it's gonna happen?
They have and they've given us timelines before, and these skills have managed to destroy a lot of timelines.
But I wonder, like, does this mean we have no new skills going into the next league? Because
I will be sad if that's true.
If that's if that's the case, then this is absolutely
the worst time to
ridiculously.
release it.
Yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous. If that's the case, I really hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would be super disappointed then.
Lifting, did you want to throw up the straw poll to see which skills people are interested in playing?
Yeah, we can do that.
We're going to just throw up the straw poll of the week, and that's of the new skills, which one people are most interested. We probably should have thrown that up sooner. So the Saturday that's coming up, we were going to do a tournament. We had a whole bunch of prizes that were just kind of put into a pool whenever we're doing them. So this Saturday, 4 p.m. GMT, it's going to be a 3v3 capture the flag double elimination with random teams. So everyone who's signed up, it is an invitation. If you want to join it, you just have to get a hold of me and ask. There's going to be a total of 24 people that are available to join, and currently we have about 9 or 10 registered. We only need 12 to get it going. So if you do want to join, I can have a list of the rules, and here's a link that has all of them at the top.
All right, we have people voting now.
Good. We actually got the right straw poll.
We've got to add Trump here. I'd like to see if people voted.
We forgot to add Trump.
I'd like to see that. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and vote, guys. The link is in chat.
It's pretty even.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Blade Flurry seems to be the most popular one, together with Scorching Ray.
They actually all look like pretty well represented.
And then there's like 13% haters who's just like, fuck that, I'm not trying any new skills, they suck.
Well, this is what's going to happen. Everyone's banking on Blade Vortex or something like that, and then we might if we get a Blade Vortex nerf, just imagine the QQ, it's going to be glorious. I'm going to enjoy the tears.
You know, like, looking forward into the upcoming league, if there are no new skills, which I'll be very sad if there aren't, I think at the very minimum, giving us new supports that work with channeled or like gives us interesting choices for channeled skills, I think would be really cool. I mean, long time ago, Rory had mentioned maybe it's possible that they incorporate something that gives you some defense while channeling. Mm-hmm. So maybe even some cool additions to the skill tree. Yeah, definitely. But I'm crossing my fingers, you know.
Well, that was one of the weird things when you bring it up is, though we've had channeling skills and they designed a channeling architect for them, they do function different. There's nothing specific on the tree. They don't have specific stats. There's no specific support gems. So it does feel that though they've put a lot of work into these skills, and though these skills have continuously caused problems, they're just 3 very basic skills on the user end.
Yeah. And they could become more complex in the upcoming seasons.
I think the exact same way that the exact same way fucking war cries became so much more detailed after they added the 2 and then didn't do anything with that mechanic. We even have ascendancies that reduce them, and it's just like,
I think one of the obvious ways of us to see that they've actually been a bit time pressed here is, for instance, that Blade Flurry have that cast animation. I think that's a pretty good indication that they haven't simply had time to change that.
Well, what's its attack animation supposed to be, if you think about it? Like,
well, it's not supposed to be a cast animation.
Like the T and spins around. So what is your character just going to do? Go T-pose and spin around?
Well, it's not supposed to be a cast animation, at least. Can we agree on that?
I don't know.
Like
I would hope it was
so bad.
You know, I'm gonna call it out. I think this is setting up the Scion for the next league. Scion's gonna be the duration class, since she's right next to both sets of duration nodes, and maybe this is gonna give her some buffs or flavor, some channel. The channel.
I think it needs more than that.
Duration class. Well, I'm just throwing it out there.
Scion Buffs, what game have you been playing? Clearly a different one.
Maybe it's super niche. Maybe it fits some of that the Cyan has, but that just means it's going to be useless for the other 99% who want to use a skill. But yeah,
I'm optimistic. I'm
optimistic.
Going to the build.
Well. Yeah, build of the week, guys.
All right. So this one, a little bit of a different tone that we took. Someone, and the person was Raics, apparently. They wanted to do a Stormtrooper build. Their objective with the build was to take two terrible skills, put them together, and see what the hell they could do with it. This is definitely not from your meta branch. This is a Orb of Storms and Lightning Arrow build, because that was their objective, using those two skills, trying to use them in tandem. Now, they used the Tempest Bow, which is the faded unique of the Storm Cloud, to get some lightning damage and some really good base attack speed. He also wanted to point out that the Orb of Storm skill has a pretty terrible base area of effect, which then had to make him use the Carcass Jack, or at least was trying to use the Carcass Jack alongside it. He's managed to pull out 2 5-links, decent quality, about level 19, 18 gems overall. He hits a wall, according to himself, around early red tiers and the late yellow tiers, so he needs to get the 6-link to push up to the tier 15s. It's not going to be a build that does the tier 16s, but that wasn't the intention of it. It was to see how far he could get using the Orb of Storms and using the Lightning Arrow skill, because they're
shrapnel shot. Shrapnel
shot.
Please.
Sorry, Lightning Arrow.
Don't do that to Lightning Arrow.
Shrapnel shot.
This is not meta. Lightning Arrow.
The nomenclature they have in their games and their elements make me want to stab myself sometimes. We had one more. We have Blade Fury, Blade Vortex, and fuck. Jewels, Jewelry, Jeweler Orbs. Fuck off. Okay, sorry about that. Shrapnel shot. So shrapnel shot, using it with Orb of Storms. So Hedgie, what were the links?
So his trigger attack, quote unquote, is shrapnel shot with faster attacks, weapon LE, lightning pen, added lightning, and slower proj. Great ways to get additions. And since he is scaling global lightning damage, so that he can benefit from both skills, those seem to be the right choices. Then we have Orb of Storms linked with Chain, which is the first time I've ever seen that happen. He also has Controlled Destruction, Lightning Pen, Elemental Focus, and added lightning. And Elemental Focus seems like a pretty good choice since he's already shocking with his bow. So just pushing the damage on Orb of Storms seems like that's what he's trying to achieve. I think it'd be interesting to maybe throw in an Innervate there and see if he can get more clear speed just by getting Onslaught and things like that. As far as mobility goes, he has Blink Arrow linked with Frenzy, faster attacks, and Blind. So as he's building up his charges, he wants to get a bit more defense. And then for buff and debuffs, he has Vol Haze with increased duration and Temp Chains, again, for whenever he needs that extra tankiness. And my favorite part of this is this one-liner he put in this thing in his guide. It says, "It kind of grew on me. You're playing a goat on a rope. There's an area on the ground where you perform better, and you always need to consider staying or leaving. It's pretty engaging build, and we don't have any similar mechanics in this game." And that's that really stuck out to me, is because I like engaging builds that make you decide and determine whether or not you need to move, stand your ground, or play defensive, switch roles, and it's very meaniful. And last time I tried to play Shrapnel Shot, I tried to play with like a mirrored Harbinger bow, and it was garbage. But I didn't have as many tools with me, like the Ascendancies and all that. But I can see why he went Elemental and why this is pretty good with the faded unique called the Tempest. So that was pretty interesting. He did make it work. His current Elemental build was way better than the Harbinger build. That was like pure crit and pure damage with shit tons of great gear. And yeah, he clears way faster than that character. But again, that was a long time ago.
Cool. As for the build of the week command, I have it's not updated, or I think I may have deleted it by accident or like something else.
my
But,
God damn it!
but PT has linked
Successful.
it in the description, and it should be in the description of the YouTube video when you watch it as well. As for the skill tree, he actually has. It is a bow character, right? They typically suffer from lack of life, but since he travels all the way up towards the witch start, he passes the energy shield, written in blood. He gets, is it heart and soul that gives mana and life and all that stuff. But in total, he ends up with something like 192% life.
Having some difficulties there, Lefty. Need some water. Come on, a sentence. You can do this.
He scales area of effect, he gets elemental overload, and the interesting, of course, is, I guess, that he goes radar. And with radar, he then gets Avatar of the Slaughter. He gets one more frenzy charge for a total of 8 frenzy charges, and then he has Avatar of Slaughter or Avatar of the Chase for more evasion and onslaught. And that's how it goes with it.
When I looked at the build, I was like, okay, I see that he's using Shrapnel Shot, Orb of Storms, and then the Raider. I was like, you really just needed to shoot yourself in the foot that much harder. I'm like, okay. He needs the speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is that the highest attack speed ascendancy available?
It's probably the one that has the most potential, at least.
I was just trying to think of how it compared to Pathfinder in terms of its attacks per second.
I'm not really sure. But yeah, I mean, that was the first thing that stood out. I was like, this guy is the Edge Master. And in his guide, he also said, I wanted a battle mage. So this is what I came up with. So I was like, oh, man, that's awesome. I've never seen a shrapnel shot build. And, you know, like I said, when I tried it out with Great Gear, and I lost all hope. But yeah, Orb of Storms for actually dealing damage, that's also another first. So this guy is he's pretty edgy.
How does it work on bosses? Like with damage from Orb of Storms. Have you guys ever tried that? How does that work? Is it like Arc? It sucks because it doesn't chain?
I've never used Orb of Storms for damage. I've never tried actually. Mainly because I looked at the tooltip and I was like, that doesn't seem that like it's worth it. But I've used it to enhance damage with Equilibrium, and I've used it to gain charges, power charges. It does have, you know, very good utility ways of using the skill, but I've never seen it used for damage.
Yeah, okay.
No, I haven't either, but you're going to struggle on some of the single target with high life.
But guys, if you want to try something different and something you can see it works, but yeah,
it'll give you something to do before some of the channeling skills, or let you learn the adventures of jank builds, which can be fun and painful.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Check it out. The link is in the chat, and I will make sure to fix that command for future.
God damn it, lifting.
As we continue here, I will show the hideout of the week. Project, really quickly tell us who it's from, and then after that, Hedgie or PT, tell us about what's up over the next coming week.
Okay. So the hideout of the week was brought by Antistas, which is in chat and Aritas. That being said, if you want to submit the hideout of the weeks and the build of the weeks, just contact me in some way. It goes on the master sheet. This one's a really nice one that was done and designed to focus on the theme of the Scion, which is praising yourself and everything being golden. So it was a fun one to see.
Mm-hmm. Watching in the background.
So then, because of what's happening in the next couple of weeks, which Hedgie is going to go over, we probably won't have a hideout of the week or build of the week. And Hedgie can explain that now.
Yeah, so next week we have a developer. His name is Roy Rackham. He's in charge of league design. He used to do supporter uniques and the skill tree and gems. And he's the guy that comes up with the ideas for new skills, the skill ecology. But we'll have a chance of talking with him next episode. And then the week after that, we'll have a then and now type episode with Kriparian. He's a former like hardcore Path of Exile player, and he's actually taken a long break, so he's able to bring some fresh eyes on how the game has changed, and we'll talk about different ARPGs and what ARPGs have to offer, and the overall just game design. So that should be a really fun episode going into the Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
But one thing I wanted to talk about, I totally forgot, is when we were talking about the shrapnel shot. I'm sorry, I'm going back to the build. I was so shocked and disappointed when you could only achieve one area of effect, even if you had 4 arrows. And I was like, that was like a huge opportunity for some awesome point blank AoE overlap action in incentivize you of making a very tanky ranger. And I don't know why they took that away. Like, why does it make sense to only have one AoE cone for one arrow?
Like no overlap.
Yeah, there was
rule,
no.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be creative in Path of Exile.
But yeah, okay. So that was just my.
That overlap would be insane, though.
Yeah, that would be really cool because you could make point blank traps with AoE overlap and shrapnel shot. When I heard about shrapnel shot, I was so optimistic. I was like, oh, this is gonna bring a new meta for like ranged attack totems because you could utilize AoE overlap and point blank. Just try to build a tanky archer that can withstand like all kinds of damage and get rewarded for it in big ways. But that wasn't allowed. You only get 1 AoE per arrow. Or for the entire skill. Sorry, even if you have GMP, no AoE overlap. Anyways, that was just a side rant. Sorry about that.
It's a good point, though. It would make the skill more interesting, for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see some in the future. I think we're about done for today. Then, guys, you don't have anything to add here near the end, right?
Nope. No? I think we went through everything. Beat all the dead horses with the channeling skills, and if anything, the prediction that we can make is, will they come out this week? Yes or no? Yeah. We were all wrong about the channeling skill. Nobody guessed the fire element because we had 2 channeling fire skills, so why would it have been fire? But apparently fire is the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Will they come out this week? Yes or no?
I'm gonna go with
yes. Yes, Bob.
I'm probably going to go with yes day. I hope no, but I'm going to go with yes.
I'm going to go with no. No faith.
You cynical asshole.
Such an asshole.
All right, guys. If you enjoyed the podcast, want to see it again with Rory next Sunday, give the stream a follow. And if you didn't catch the entire podcast, you can check the VOD. It will be uploaded to Hegemony's YouTube in 5 to 6 hours from now. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And take care.
See ya.
Ciao.